gonna tell you this, guys. Not only did I never have sex with an engaged or married Sarah, but I also have never had
stipulation
sex with any other engaged or married woman other than my wife throughout my entire life, even before I met her.
He didn't sleep with an engaged or married woman. Come on, bro. Come on.
I'm drinking, and everyone knows I hadn't had a sip of alcohol for many months because she'd asked me to stop during this time. I didn't have any.
What? I think he just admitted it right there.
Very weird stuff. I don't want to drag her, so I'm not going to say anything else. But she was getting into occult stuff, and
You're already saying
I
it.
don't like.
He says, I don't want to say anything bad. I don't want to say nothing bad about her. But she's getting in demonic shit. She's demonically possessed.
But these blackmail artists who took private matters as well as many, many false and fabricated statements about myself, they had two requirements. One, I had to delete my social media or decide to log off for 1 year. And I had to check myself into rehab.
Log off for 1 year. Of
course, when you ask each one of them, what am I going to rehab for? They don't really have the answer. It's always this drug or that drug. I am on no illegal substances, and I'm not abusing alcohol. I am not abusing any prescription medication at all, period. And I've already been evaluated by a psychiatrist who's cleared me and said, actually, yeah, there's no reason for you to go to rehab at all. I also want to say to the people who are struggling with substance abuse.
Okay, then he goes on to say basically like, oh, you shouldn't be ashamed. All right, so the demands were, what did he say? You had to give up your YouTube channel for a year. That was it, for a year. But then they also wanted him to check himself into rehab, which is interesting. Because we come to find out that the two people who were involved in this were Milo Yiannopoulos and Eli McGarvey, who is his wife's brother. So his brother-in-law, who apparently worked for him, got this dossier together in conjunction with Milo. He keeps saying, I don't have problems with alcohol. I don't have problems with drugs. But I actually think that because it's your wife's brother, the shutting down the channel, I think that's clearly political, right? But the rehab thing, I think, I actually think there might be some credibility to that. Somebody who's close to his family, somebody who's close to his wife, I think he probably does abuse alcohol. And based on that audio recording we heard, he sounded drunk as shit. He sounded like he had one too many beers. Now, he probably does get a little abusive when he drinks. Now, maybe he's working on it. Look, I don't know. But I think there probably is something there where he probably has been kind of abusive when he drinks. And his wife probably talks to her brother. And that was one of the stipulations. Hey, go to rehab, bro. He does a lot of this God stuff too. He quotes a lot of scripture in here. And like, that's, good for him. He talks about how he's a new Christian the last several months. Good for him. I hope he goes down that path. It's just that his actions after the fact are totally doubling down, tripling down on what he did. And I think like, look, dude, this is basically what I surmise is that there's two things happening here at once. It's like what they did was not right, but like he doesn't deny any of them. He tries to do this snaky thing where he says, I've never slept with an engaged or married woman. And you're like, okay. So if Sarah Stock wasn't engaged at the time, A, you're cheating on your wife. And B, if she was dating some guy who they were thinking about being engaged, like, dude, that's still kind of snaky too. And I don't know if she was a virgin or not. She said she was, and that was prior to this whole engagement she had with Elijah. So what if she was? What if she was a virgin? She was waiting for a marriage. They get together. He sleeps with her. Like, nah, man, that's kind of fucked up. The guy she's just married is getting the raw end of the deal. He's trying to like hypnotize us with this shit in the background. I'm like, what is this, dude? I will not be hypnotized by you, Elijah.
I'm going to tell you this, guys. Not only did I never have sex with an engaged or married Sarah, but I also have never had sex with any other engaged or married woman other than my wife throughout my entire life, even before I met her. So this whole narrative was given to you to distract you and to cripple me financially and destroy my...
You see how he makes that little stipulation there? Like, I've never had sex with a married or engaged woman other than my wife. Come on, bro. Come on.
So it took me time to put this all together, which we have very, very, very carefully documented for legal reasons. Everybody who's involved, how they attempted to destroy my company, how they exploited my marriage. But while I had to do this, they decided to distract all of you with just another little morsel of gossip in order to destroy my public reputation so that in the end, you would think what? Oh, well, he deserves all the bad that's happening to him. And what bad is going to happen to me? A trial with the FBI, which we'll get into much later.
No, that's separate. And I totally agree. That's a separate thing. That's some weird Jewish fascism that we're all enduring right now. And I feel bad for him on that front. That's fucking ridiculous. His marriage was already on the rocks. He talked about how he basically had to live with his mother-in-law and his father-in-law, so his wife's parents. They were structuring the schedule with their kids all around, and that he had to follow this regimented schedule. So much to the point to where he said, I couldn't even be intimate with my wife. She said we had to follow the schedule, and the mom kept basically butting into the middle of things. Honestly, absolute disaster. And I think that's probably true. That probably is happening. That probably led him to drink. That probably led him to step out. He sees this cute blonde girl and he's like, yo. And that's what he says. He's like, look, she was depriving me of intimacy, and that was fucked up. They were sleeping in different rooms as well. So this whole thing is like, this was happening. It's boiling and boiling and boiling. And his brother-in-law essentially ratted him out to the worst snake of all time, Milo Yiannopoulos. And they're using that as a justification to get him to stop talking about Israel and Zionism. And they're trying to pressure him out of the political light. I think these two things are happening in tandem. And I think he is wrong for sleeping with Sarah Stock and stepping on his wife. I think he's wrong for that too. You know, there's multiple angles here that you could look at this. You know, you're not only fighting with your wife, but you're fighting with your wife's family. Okay. And then you have this slimy asshole, her brother, basically who was working for you, recording conversations you had at work. He was the one who recorded the conversation with Sarah Stock, the one we listened to, where she told him, oh, he gave me Benadryl, and oh, I don't know. I'm not trying to when she said like 1,000 times. I'm not trying to not take blame or whatever, but he kind of gave me Benadryl. Eli McGarvey, his brother-in-law, was the one talking to Sarah Stock on the phone that night, allegedly from Elijah's mouth.
It's currently going to trial on my reputation. So it would make you wonder, as we'll talk about some coincidences, on the same day this dossier went public and you guys all found out about my alleged affair and insane nonsense like that I had abortions or a pimp house and just absolute libel. What also happened? Well, the federal court gave us a rush judgment saying that they're not going to accept my dismissal and that I'm actually going to have to go to trial for a $5 million lawsuit based off of what? Not just my anti-Semitic or anti-Israel comments that were contained in the lawsuit, but now I'm going to stand trial for everything I've said about Israel. This is documented in court. Everything that I've said before the lawsuit, during the lawsuit, and now. And the only way that I can save my ass is to what? Just like my wife, just like her brother, just like my sister, just like my friends who don't know me, just like Milo, who says I need to delete my social media. They said one thing, just stop talking about Israel. If I don't talk about Israel anymore, well, I'm going to be safe for my trial. But unfortunately for them, we're going to have to talk a lot about Israel.
I hate that angling that these people are all taking now, is that if you don't let me slide with anything I do, no matter what it is, and I'm a quote unquote right-wing pundit, well, then you're on the side of woke, you're on the side of Israel. It's again, we can think a little more here than this dialectic of woke and based and not woke, right? We can think a little, we can hold a couple more positions in our mind. I think we can do it. I think we're allowed to do that. I think Christians and conservatives are absolutely in the right to say, look, if you're cheating on your wife and you're not even denying it, that's fucked up, man. Especially if you're coming at it your whole brand is Christian, right? Your whole brand is conservative and right wing. If that's your brand, that's a little fucked up. Then we can also say, yeah, there probably is political motivations for what's happening to you. And it probably does have to do with Israel. But he wants to shirk all responsibility and say he had nothing to do with it. And it's dude, I don't know, man.
Obviously, I'm leaving a lot out in between because for court reasons, they don't want me to tell you a lot of the details of our day-to-day life. But the night that I got divorced was very weird. My chief of staff was over at my house, so I have witnesses. They told me, look, you're divorced. You need to live in a separate house. I posed no threat, never had any violence towards my wife. I was literally just hanging out with my employee. And they accused me that night. They said, you've been drinking this week. You're on drugs. This week? And I go, no, I'm not. And this is where this started happening, where I started going, wait a second, what? And her brother, Eli James McGarvey, where we introduced to him, who's Francis Moon on this dossier, he says, yeah, you've been throwing up recently, and we know you're drinking. I go, I have a sensitive stomach. I've had a sensitive stomach since I was a kid. Sometimes I smoke too many cigars and I throw up. It's not a weird thing. I'm going, what?
What?
And then they go, yeah. And then you...
Maybe. That's kind of weird. You've been throwing up a lot. Well, I have a sensitive stomach. I just have that's kind of, I mean, maybe. I don't, if I see people throwing up, I feel like there's something wrong with them, but I guess you can have some sort of chronic illness or something, I guess. But he doesn't even say that. He says he just has a sensitive stomach. Okay.
You know, you're on drugs. You fell asleep on Christmas on the couch. I'm like, I took a nap on my couch on Christmas after spending $5,000 on gifts for you guys. I'm being villainized for a nap? And this sort of like control, that's what it was. It was like, we're telling you what your life is. And I'm going, okay, guys, so I thought it was a joke, for instance, for a second. I'll go, wait. We're getting a divorce because I took a nap and because I'm on drugs that I'm not on. I'm drinking and everyone knows I hadn't had a sip of alcohol for many months because she'd asked me to stop during this time. I didn't have any.
What? I think he just admitted it right there. She asked him to stop. Why would you ask him to stop if it wasn't a problem? Let's watch that back. Let's rewind that.
I'm on drugs that I'm not on. I'm drinking and everyone knows I hadn't had a sip of alcohol for many months because she'd asked me to stop during this time. I didn't have any alcohol, period.
Why did she ask you to stop, Elijah? Why did she ask you to stop? Probably because you were drinking a little too much and you were being abusive, as we heard in that video. You're being real nasty, bud. You were being real nasty. I didn't like it. It hurt my feelings. I think that's probably true. I think he abuses drugs and alcohol. At least alcohol. I don't know about the drugs, but alcohol, I think he drinks a lot. And she asked him to stop. And he said, everybody knew that I wasn't drinking at this time. Everybody knew that I hadn't had a sip of alcohol for months because she asked me not to stop drinking. You only ask somebody to stop drinking if they're drinking too much and they're being belligerent. Maybe he's good now. Maybe he hasn't drank for 6 months now, but at the time he was drinking every day. So like now he feels like, oh yeah, I don't drink. I don't have any problems. I don't need rehab. What do I need anything for? And it's like, okay, yeah, you haven't been doing anything currently. And maybe you're on the right path, but at the time there was a legitimate problem. Doesn't everyone fall asleep on the couch at Christmas? Yeah, but not everybody throws up beforehand. Not everybody falls asleep in their own vomit. That's something that I don't ever do.
Not even a drip. And yet they're telling me in my house, you need to leave. You are drinking. And I'm like, no, this is weird. I got to talk to my wife. They wouldn't let me speak to her. Now, obviously, me and my wife have been romantically separated, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video.
He talks about how her father tried to block him from entering the house at one point, and actually was trying to bait him into hitting him. So that's the point we're at. And look, they might be insane too. I've dealt with in-laws, not personally, but I've had family who have dealt with difficult in-laws, and it's like, dude, you have to first and foremost take your wife or your husband's side above your family. Like, you can't get the family involved because the family's always going to take their daughter or their son's side every time. No matter how ridiculous they are, no matter how ridiculous they act, they're always going to take that person's side. And so it's just like a losing battle. And then any fight you get in with them just makes you look worse. And it's just like, dude, get them out of the situation. But apparently they were living with them and creating schedules. The mom was creating mad schedules and forcing him and the kids to align their lives with it. They would not do that completely unprompted, crazy or not. It's not that it's unprompted. It's that if you have an argument with your spouse, they might go to their family and bitch and moan and cry and elevate the problem way more than it actually is. So then their family has a sense of like, oh my gosh, this is a real big problem. He's a real asshole. But you're getting the story through the lens of only one side of the argument. You're not seeing the whole thing. And so, I'm not saying, like, look, sometimes people are justified in doing that. I'm not, okay. When you tell a story, you don't ever make your side, you look bad. You always overindulge what they've done bad, and you always take them to the 10th degree and say, they were so mean, and I did nothing wrong, and they did. But sometimes you do things wrong. And if they're not there to see it, and they're not there to witness it, they don't know, and they're just going to take your side because they think, oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
Physically separated in our rooms, sleeping separately on different floors of the house for over a year. And we had no sex at the time of the divorce for 6 months, no sexual contact at all.
No.
Why were we in separate rooms? Because that's what her parents said was good for the kids. Now, obviously, when I got tricked into doing it, originally I was told that I had to be in separate rooms because of their schedule, and I worked late, and the baby slept in our room, and it was keeping him up. I didn't know this was about creating distance so that they could set me up and create a false narrative. Now, the truth is that even when we separated, I called my wife multiple times. I spoke to her in person. I'd say, baby, if we're sleeping in separate rooms, this is going to lead us to a divorce because we're not going to have any sexual contact or intimacy. It's like we're worse than roommates because, you're mean to me every day. Your family was very vindictive. It was very serious. My counsel didn't necessarily want me to put this in, but I'm going to say the truth here. Like, it got to the point to where I'd come down to dinner and they were eating, they would stop talking and they would get up, take their plates, go to their room. If they were watching a movie, they would turn it off and leave. Her sister would I'd walk into a room to grab milk out of the fridge, and the living room was right there, and she would go walk outside the moment I was downstairs. And I would tell her, your family's so...
They'll turn it into hostile environment, hostile vibes, which you would not be the case necessarily, or at least it'd be equal. Like, even if you're having a beef with your wife, that's one-on-one. But when it's okay, all encompassing, you got your whole family here who's attacking me, right? A war on multiple fronts. That's oh man, that puts somebody in a corner.
So rude to me. I don't how can you be mean to somebody in their own house? I'm paying for their lives. What is up with this? So the reality is our divorce really was a long 3-year disconnection to when her family decided that they were going to control my children's schedule, they were going to control where we slept, and they were going to control our sex life. And I didn't understand how serious the interaction was until I found out that for over a year, my brother-in-law and her family were secretly recording me in my house, creating a dossier on my personal life. Now, to clarify, her brother, Eli James McGarvey, who currently is believed to have fled to Belgrade, Serbia, a non-EU state which is not under Hague Treaty, he during this time worked for me as my editor-in-chief at my work, Rift TV. And as we find out later in part 2, as he admits in here, he is working with the FBI, or at least allegedly attempting to work with the FBI, to give them private recordings illegally filmed inside of my home and my work in order to compromise my character evaluation before this trial against Alexis Wilkins, the girlfriend of FBI Director Kash Patel.
This was after he cheated, I think. Oh, that's true. He never actually specified when this was. If this was happening over the last year and he cheated last year, it was last February is what they said, I believe. That could be the case. That could be the case where he's bringing up. That's another way people lie. They tell you, oh, this has been happening. This is what led to it. But it's no, you're actually missing the point. The point is that this was after what you did.
Let me look at a couple. I'm going to go over this. These are private phone calls between Sarah and Eli McGarvey. It was his voice on the recordings. That's another reason we know it was him. And so I'm not going to go through those. It's her private information. I'm never going to discuss another person's sex life or admission of it on any of my things. So now we get into some of the framing here. He says regarding the divorce. So now he's bringing the divorce back, and that's why I said it's public. They're trying to exploit it. They're scheming. So you have these two things scheming on how to.
Whoa. Okay, can I guess it's on YouTube. I think that's fine. He's framing this in this video as kind of he's kind of taking the moral high ground. He keeps saying, oh, I'm never going to speak ill about my children's mother and all this stuff. But she filed for divorce and then he filed for divorce. So he's trying to do this no, I dumped you thing, which seems like it doesn't really line up. The motives of doing that don't really line up with how he's acting here, to where he wants to say, no, I love her. She's still the mother of my children. She's still a wonderful woman. And God, what is he? God, the vengeance is mine, says the Lord, right? He quotes that in here. But then he's coming out and he's doing the old, no, I'm dumping you. No, I'm divorcing you. You're the crazy one. I don't know if he's being completely truthful. I think he probably does have a drinking problem, but I think he's probably telling the truth about her family was staying there. They were probably being nitpicky about things. Now, whether or not they got really harsh on him, the harshness that he's detailing, was that after the Sarah Stock incident? I don't know. He doesn't actually give a timeline. And as King of Shino pointed out, that could have been, they started to get really aggressive with him on the schedule. A schedule is really weird for your mother-in-law to have a schedule. There had to have been a reason why if it got that precise and that kind of authoritarian, right? She got that persnickety over the schedule. That actually kind of tracks King of Sheba. That probably was what it was. They probably had known about his drinking problems and maybe him stepping out. Maybe they didn't 100% know at the time. Maybe that led to the mother-in-law and the father-in-law acting a certain way about him, demanding a schedule. And then maybe Eli McGarvey said, well, I'm going to start to record him. I'm going to talk to Sarah Stock. Maybe that's how it went down. That actually like logically tracks, I think, better than whatever he's saying. He's trying to say all that came before, and that's the reason why he stepped out. And it's like, I don't know, man. He is clearly not telling the whole story. Yeah.
He's like, the wife initiated the divorce in Texas, but get this. I'm sorry. Does anyone email like this anymore? I feel like this is gay. Since
yeah, and throughout this whole video, he keeps doing this weird cringe bullshit where he's like trying to dismiss people on the stupidest shit. Like at one point he said some guy, I can't remember who it was, but he said some guy like was critiquing him online, being very critical of him online. And he said, okay, first of all, you have a ponytail, so your opinion is discarded. A ponytail? What is that? The grounds for dismissal on people's opinions? Is if you have a ponytail? What the hell? And then this, yeah, that's like really gay. And then he drags Brittany Venti and says she's a mixed raced mutt, disgusting, like gets real nasty. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? Meanwhile, didn't really deny any of these allegations, saying he didn't sleep with an engaged or married woman. Okay.
Oh, he said girls are a bunch of holes. And I'm like, no, I said that's how they behave. And that's not how God designed them.
No, you said women.
Don't misquote me, but there's been a very coordinated and concerted
women as a universal
to try to discredit me because I just won't kiss Israel's ass. Okay? I just won't do it. To all the Zionists out there, get fucked. We're not on the same team.
Can somebody who's critical of Israel also say other shit that you're like, bro, the framing of this or the way you said it is a little eh? Can they do that without being an Israel shill? Is that a possibility? I critique Israel. I'm a critic of Israel and Zionists and Jews. So therefore, anything I say has to be you're butthurt about that. It's like,
I don't want you to like me. People are not going to like you after this video. Good. I don't like you either. He said he went and filed for the divorce in Florida so it could look like he was the one to initiate it. No, I did initiate it. I filed in Florida. He admits it here, just so he can go and say I wanted to divorce my wife because of abuse and mistreatment. So now you see, they realize that I'm not going away from the blackmail. This is now January 30th. This is 1 month into the blackmail. I'm not caving to the blackmail. Now they're getting worried and like, okay, he's not deleting his social media. He's not going to rehab. He's probably going to go public and make the video I'm making now, explaining his side. So now it goes into this whole like, I don't even want to read all of it because it's so crazy. And I just like to mention my wife was very getting into astrology and like new age seance stuff. That's why I said you're under demonic influence. She was like burning effigy stuff the night before our divorce. Very weird stuff. I don't want to drag her, so I'm not going to say anything else. But she was getting into occult stuff. And
You're already saying
I don't like.
He says, I don't want to say anything bad. I don't want to say nothing bad about her. But she's getting in demonic shit. She's demonically possessed. She's burning an effigy before our divorce. Like, I think you just said it. You think she is under spiritual delusion.
That. And I was very mad at her about that, by the way, because as a man, I was becoming a Christian and working on that. And, she was mocking my faith and her brother mocked my faith and they mock it in here too. And then they were doing weird occultic stuff.
Okay.
And I do believe that there's
he's reaching for the Christians. A lot of this stuff just seems to be pandering too. A lot of the Bible quotes, and now he wants to pivot and kind of frame his wife as being demonically possessed. And it's like, dude, you married her, bro. And maybe this could be a good look. You learned your lesson, buddy. Now, if you want to go down the Orthodox Christian path, it's a narrow one, but you can go down that path, and maybe you'll find a wife who aligns more with you and your values. Maybe that's good. Maybe this is all in divine providence. Maybe this is what he needs to do. I'm for that. I'm all for that. I'm all for that story, that redemption story. But some of the way he's framing this and angling this, and again, I don't think he's telling us the truth. It's kind of like, wife was dunking his voodoo doll in the fish tank. Maybe she's dunking it in the toilet. Maybe trash talking his kid's mother in public isn't so nice. During this video, he was fairly positive on her. And he wanted to, he kept saying, I don't want to speak bad of her, but then he kind of lets it slip here with the she's into weird occult stuff and she is possessed. I mean, he didn't say that, but he's hinting at that for sure.